Hey ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. Last week we talked about the conferences and our reactions to them. This week it's kind of our E3 wrap-up. We're mainly going to be focusing on the games we really enjoyed. Main stipulation being that we had to have seen gameplay. Obviously we weren't fortunate to have like access at E3 or anything like that. None of us went, but...
I was behind closed doors.
Yeah, there's Jordan, has joined me as always. And Dom.
Love and respect.
Dom as well.
Hi.
Yeah, so we're just going to do this round robin style. We each came up with our list of our 5 favorite games of the show, and then at the end we'll talk about our cumulative one, which you'll probably be able to figure out by listening to our lists.
Or just looking at the rest of the internet.
Exactly. So my number 5 is, this was tough. I had 3 written down, and I ultimately had to come to 1, obviously. I ended up putting A Way Out. Solely, the reason it beat out the other 2, and I'll tell you what the other 2 were, it was Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle and Sea of Thieves. I cut off Sea of Thieves not because I'm not excited for it and I enjoyed what they had to show this year. It's just that it was a known quantity. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is a game that I'm really anticipating. I'm going to pick it up when I get my Switch. But I think that A Way Out did a lot. It proved that EA is putting money into EA Originals. Faye and Unraveled are cool-looking games. They're not very high budget. They do read as indie games. And though A Way Out doesn't read as a AAA, it's obvious that they put a lot of money into it, right? So, and I like the concept of, like, you can play this co-op but online, but we want you to play couch co-op. I think that's really cool. The passion from the developer is huge. And, yeah, it's cool to see arguably the most exciting new IP from EA is an indie game. And that's really awesome. So, I don't want to say too much about A Way Out because a lot has been said, and I don't know if you guys have it on your list at all, but it was really cool. Great to see a focus on co-op. You know, there was a couple of years there where couch co-op was quote-unquote dead, but now with the likes of Overcooked and a bunch of other games, including now A Way Out, I think couch co-op is going to return in heavy fashion, especially considering 343 said it's going to be coming back in Halo 6 too. So I'm excited for A Way Out. It comes out next year, unfortunately. We have to wait a long time, but I'll wait all I have to play that game. So who wants to go up next with your number 5?
I will. I think that Mario Rabbids, that's my number 5, was probably one of the biggest surprises of this year, just because obviously we knew it was happening, but it was a pleasant surprise in the fact that a lot of people, myself included, were really just looking at this game as a joke, which, you know, isn't wrong, seeing as how it was described with the worlds colliding and the 4 Mario characters and the 4 Rabbids being dressed up as them. So regardless of that, the actual gameplay that was shown looking much like, as many have stated, XCOM and just a strategy game in general, it is a lot more interesting than I ever expected it to be, and something that I'm actually thinking I'll probably play now. So that I put it down at the bottom of my list just because of the fact that it was a pleasant surprise, but it definitely didn't, I wouldn't say, like, blew my socks off or anything. So definitely excited for that game, and I do think it showed a lot better than plenty of other games that we saw this year.
Super Mario Enemy Unknown, as many people are quoting it as.
I like that.
That's great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the reveal of the Donkey Kong Rabbid was cool, and I like that they aren't like turning away from the Rabbids' personalities. Like, they could easily done like, no, the Rabbids you knew are no more. This is a more serious take on the Rabbids, or like, you know, trying to essentially that they would be worried that people wouldn't give in to the Rabbids. Like, no, it's a dumb story. The Rabbids take over the Mushroom Kingdom, and, you know, Mario and his friends see them as a nuisance. They see them as a disease. They want to get rid of them. It's really cool. So I'm excited too. I think it was a pleasant surprise, like you said, because unlike Assassin's Creed, which I think performed well as far as demoing and stuff like that, it didn't surprise us because the leaks weren't things that gave us a bad taste about Assassin's Creed. They were just like, okay, this is what it's going to be. Whereas the Kingdom Battle leaks were like, ooh, I don't know about this, I don't know, and then it lowered our expectations, you know. So
right.
I think that was cool too. I agree with you.
It didn't make my list, but I think the Rabbids get a lot of undeserved hate, just in general.
Really?
Rabbids
Is it undeserved?
I don't get it. I mean, I don't have much experience with the Rabbids, but I think they're kind of funny.
I think
I
it's a
don't know.
cool thing to dislike. It's like the Minions. Like, personally, I don't hate them or like them. I'm indifferent on them. But I do understand why many people dislike them. It's, comedy is one of the most subjective things, right? So it's like, to some people, it's going to be like, oh, it's whatever. They're a little annoying or it doesn't bother me. To some people, it's going to be like, I hate these things. I wish they didn't exist, But I do agree with you. Like,
I don't
Sorry,
have a burning passion against them. I just think they're extremely ugly more than anything else.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of these. I'm the opposite of these people that are like, look at a pug dog and they're like, oh, it's so cute. Like, if something's ugly, it's ugly to me. So
yeah.
I don't go with like ugly cute or whatever, and that's part of it. But also I do think like they're kind of just obnoxious. That's why I think most people don't like them and the Minions, is that they're just kind of fucking annoying.
I think they're the thing with the rabbits is they have like those Christopher Walken eyes.
Yeah.
Got some Steve Buscemi look to
Steve
him.
Buscemi, yeah, that's what I was thinking of, not Christopher Walken. Those Steve Buscemi eyes. It's just like, yeah, they're more hard on the eyes than they are on the ears, and it's like, ugh. What's your number 5 though? No.
Yeah, getting to the real list here. My number 5, God of War.
Oh,
Okay.
5. I
Because-
thought it would be higher. That's surprising.
Yeah, no, this is an honor.
An honor.
I'm expecting fan mail from Santa Monica because I put them so high on my list, of course.
Yeah.
But mostly because this is one that last E3 it kind of took me by surprise. Like, oh, this is what they're doing with God of War, but it wasn't quite enough to totally sell me on it. But after seeing more of the gameplay of the actual fighting. And that giant sea serpent monster that moment, that was just, it felt just real hype to me. I was like, oh, okay, we got some like Dark Souls level scale in your enemies here, although the sea serpent apparently is actually an ally. I don't know, we'll see. Whatever.
Yeah.
But the game looked good in every sense that a game can look good to me, and the actual gameplay, I was like really sold on that too, so. And I'm actually, for the first time, interested in a God of War game, which I never thought that would happen. So.
Nice.
The interesting thing, so it didn't make my list, and it's not because I didn't like it. I thought it looked cool, but I'm actually the opposite of you of that. I really liked the way they revealed it last year, and it did a whole lot for me of like, it gave you those tones of this is still God of War, but this isn't the God of War kind of walk that fine line of like giving you familiar things of being like, this is completely different. This year, nothing about the trailer was bad, but nothing about the trailer really excited me personally. And I think it's honestly, for me, it's because at the end of that trailer, it was still a 2018 release date. Like, and it's not even that it was 2018. I think if it was a specific date they gave, so even if it was in 2017, if they're like March 28th, 2018, and I understand why Sony didn't do it. I'm not harping on them for that. But for me, watching that trailer and watching that demo, if that would have ended with a specific date, I think it wouldn't have took as much air out of it as it did for me, Because in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, this could be spring 2018, but the fact they didn't give it a solid release date means we might see this again at E3 next year. And I know I'm like harping on it a little too much. Like, I really did enjoy God of War, but for me, that's why
which is why it's even weirder that since then Sean Layden said that every game we said 2018 is in the first half. So then it's like, why didn't you put that in the show then?
Exactly.
The God of War team themselves have been adamant that it's early 2018. So if it doesn't get delayed, then I think it'll be out before E3 next year.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and maybe they're just hoping to get everything cleared away, and you'll probably, if it does come out in the first half of 2018, you'll have that release date at PSX. But remember, I think Sony has quote kind of learned that they delay their stuff a lot, so they don't want to guarantee too much as far as a specific date. So
yeah,
my number 4 is Metro Exodus. We talked about this last week when we were talking about the reactions of. This did a lot for me at the Xbox Showcase because I love the Metro series. I'm glad it has a spotlight now. I think it has a chance to shine. 4A Games is a really good studio. And for those of you wondering, at the beginning of the show I said this is gameplay only. That Metro Exodus reveal was gameplay. Developers talked about it. It was just, they removed the HUD, they did all that stuff. The areas where people thought it was really cinematic and really scripted with the bear, and also when he's climbing up the ladder and kicks the dog creature down, those were QTEs that they removed a lot of the prompts and interactions with, just so it flowed better for editing and stuff like that. So it was 100% gameplay. I'm excited. The biggest problem I had with this is post the reveal, people were talking about this because they saw the train, they thought it was open world. this game is an open world, which I'm thankful for, because I think
Yeah.
the worst thing they could have done is be an open world game. That's not what Metro is. If you're familiar with the Metro series, it's linear progression. It's open. I would like to call it open linear. It's kind of like the Tomb Raider-esque kind of thing, where there's these smaller open areas, but there is still a linear through line. And I don't think Metro would work as an open world game in the sense of building its own identity. I think it would look way better than Fallout 4, but it would be compared to that. It wouldn't be the scope of that. But yeah, I'm thankful it's not open world. But Metro Exodus is huge, and we're probably going to see it on Xbox's stage next year too, when they do the full reveal of it coming out next year, early 2019, right? I was just happy to see a game like this get recognition. It's kind of like probably how a lot of Witcher people felt. Not that Witcher and Witcher 2 weren't successful, but Witcher 3 getting that spotlight, I think is really cool, and that's how I felt about Metro Exodus. So that's why it's number 4.
I'll cut in front of Jordan because my number 4 is also Metro.
Okay.
So I pretty much agree with everything you said. Yeah, I would really prefer this. Not that I don't like open world games, of course, because I like them more than other games, really. But I think this is best served as a linear or mostly single player experience. And the only thing I'll add besides that is it was visually the best thing I think we saw, graphics wise.
Beautiful.
Everything in E3, and that's to be expected. The previous games are known to be the games that can push your PC the most. That's always what you benchmark against. So yeah, it looks amazing. So I'm pumped for that too.
Hey, you didn't play the first 2, right?
No, I actually have them on
Yeah.
PC, but they don't work. I hit a hard glitch. It just crashes. I uninstalled and reinstalled in the same exact spot. So I don't know. I gave up.
Yeah. The cool thing too is the reason this is called Exodus is because the main character, you've been going around. It's there was a nuke that happened, and that's obviously why there's this post-apocalyptic vibe, and you kind of go around Serbia. I believe it's Serbia. I could be wrong about that. And you're in this like deep north of Russia kind of area, and Exodus is him finally leaving that area. The developer talked about there being 4 complete seasons. That's something we haven't seen because most of the first 2 Metro games took place in snowy areas. So actually seeing this environment in like a very sunny summer or spring type vibe is going to be really cool. And I think that's probably something they're going to lock onto next year's E3 of showing it in summer and it in winter and all that stuff. So yeah, it's really cool to see it so high on your list considering you haven't played the first 2. I think that shows that it demoed well to people who weren't familiar with the series. That's great. Jordan, what's your number 4?
So, obviously, since I'm so different, my number 4 game is a game called Exodus, Metro.
Really? Oh shit! Sorry for jumping in front of you for no reason, then. Huh?
Yeah, thanks for cutting in, Dom. Thanks a lot.
It's cool that we all had it the same position. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. I think that this game was. I think the Metro games were popular enough to warrant a 3rd game in the series, but it definitely isn't something that was surefire, and they are, more AA, smaller titles. So it's very nice to see that it did show up, and I thought that just the way Microsoft positioned it, to being at the beginning, was really cool just to see the game, like basically what you were saying, Jared.
Yeah.
Seeing this game get the recognition that it probably deserves. I, like Dom, have the games but haven't played them yet, so they're on PS4, so I know that they'll work and I can jump in at some point. Not as a slight against you, you know what I mean.
The beauty of console gaming.
Yes, exactly. I don't have to worry about benchmarking and all that. But anyways, I think that this game, sure, we have plenty of post-apocalyptic games, and we have plenty of first-person shooters, but I think the way that this game presents itself in the world that it is in is still different. It's different from The Division. It's different from Days Gone. Excuse me, and it doesn't really feel like the same old when it comes to post-apocalyptic universes. So I am excited to see that part about it, and I was happy with that. And yeah, the stuff you're talking about with it not being open world, I definitely don't think this game needs to be open world, and so I'm happy that that's not being shoehorned in.
Yeah, and the great thing too is 4A Games has a fantastic attention to detail. Like in that trailer when he's walking into that building at the very beginning and he gets his lighter and he lights and the webs catch on fire.
Right.
The lighter is a mechanic in the game. It's been in previous Metro games. That's not something that they're doing to show, look how pretty this spiderweb looks getting burned. Like, that's actually something that's familiar with the series. Also, the filter mechanic is something you don't really see in other games in the post-apocalyptic kind of thing.
Right.
It kind of takes the radiation kind of stuff from Fallout in a different direction, and that's cool that that's returning. So it's awesome that Metro Exodus is so high on our list. That's really cool.
Even in other post-apocalyptic games, a lot of the times it doesn't necessarily affect your moment-to-moment gameplay or your strategies either way, so it's cool to see that clearly this does affect, it's not just about the world that you're in and the story being told, it's actually affecting your gameplay.
Yeah. Also, if you don't have the first 2 Metro games, they go on sale all the time for super cheap. So if you're interested in Metro Exodus at all, I definitely suggest picking them up because they're fantastic games. Next up, I guess we're going to number 3. Number 3 on my list is Spider-Man. This is a game that I actually debated. This game could have been 1, 2, or 3 for me, and I sat here thinking about it. A lot of people had issues with the amount of QTE in the demo, which I thought was uncalled for, considering if you know it's an open world game and you're in the specific mission, that doesn't mean that a bunch of those QTEs are going to translate to normal gameplay. Like, it's just something you should know from playing video games. I don't know. I thought that.
Yeah, I don't get that complaint either, Jared.
Yeah, I like, if I'm in this mission and I'm going after Mr. Negative, and this is like these scripted moments that you've seen in Uncharted before. Like, I don't understand why so many people are like, not all of Uncharted is QuickTime events. There's a bunch of times in that game where you're not doing that. So, yeah, I didn't know about those. But the gameplay itself was really awesome. It didn't surprise me because I expected this from Insomniac. It just kind of met what I expected. It's like, it didn't surprise me, but it's like, it was what I was dreaming of seeing, and it just came to be. I think the inclusion of a lot of the Easter eggs was really cool. We had the Daily Bugle Easter egg. We had the Harry Osborn Easter egg. We had, obviously, Wilson Fisk, Kingpin showing up.
What was the Harry Osborn Easter egg?
It was just the billboard. It's not like quote-unquote Easter egg, but it was like Harry Osborn running for mayor, which means they might do the timeline in which... they might do one of the timelines. I don't want to spend too much time harping on that. But there's a specific timeline in which Harry Osborn is running for mayor, and it's interesting because in that timeline, he's specific. Like, Harry Osborn wants to come to power, but in that specific timeline, he's trying to become the leader of all organized crime. And that's interesting because they showed that billboard, but they also showed Wilson Fisk, who's also known for, like, the mob mentality, organized crime stuff. So I wonder if that's going to be a thing of, like, because you saw Peter Spider-Man working with Wilson Fisk. I wonder if there's going to be a lot of times in that game where the enemy of your enemy is your friend, Right. So, like, you're going to have to help Wilson Fisk to take down Mr. Negative or take down the Green Goblin. I thought the game looked beautiful. I thought the web swinging looked great. They confirmed after the demonstration that all of the web swinging is 100% physics-based. The webs stick to the buildings. And I thought the one of the biggest things in Spider-Man games is the movement and traversal, and I like that. I loved how he ran across the buildings, and I also love, a lot last year when we saw him going through that cafe, people were like, "Oh, is that like a cutscene or is it a scripted event?" It's like a choose your own adventure scripted event essentially when you go into those buildings, because you only control the stick, but you can control what path you take, which I think is really cool. I'm super excited for Spider-Man. It could have ended up anywhere in the top 3 on my list, and it met all of my expectations, so I'm super stoked about it.
So, I got a big surprise for you guys. My number 3 is Spider-Man. The reason that this is on here in this spot is
also
because...
just so people know, we didn't tell each other our lists, so this is all a surprise.
Yeah, this is pretty funny. I think... Obviously, I'm a huge fan of superhero games, and obviously I'm also a huge fan of Insomniac games, so this is really a dream come true in a lot of ways. I think that the reason it's not higher on my list is because it definitely didn't show me anything that was necessarily unexpected. Like, I expected there to be Uncharted-like QTE sequences. I expected there to be kind of infiltration missions like he was doing at the beginning. However, I think this is really just because we hadn't seen solid gameplay other than little tiny clips in the original trailer. But I think showing this in the way that they did, with it being a decently long demo, I think that it just solidifies, like, yes, we know what we're doing. Yes, we're on track with this game, and it's going to be super solid. If nothing else, I think that's my biggest takeaway, is just that it looks very solid. It doesn't seem like you're going to be tripping up or you're going to have any issue with, once you get into it and, you know, figure out your style as Spider-Man, I think you're just going to be able to really have a smooth experience and really enjoy yourself. So, yeah, I mean, there's not really anything negative to say at all. So I just, basically it's just there because I think it looks so solid, and I am so happy that it's happening in the first place.
Well, Jordan, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Dom. All I want to say is,
I'm done.
With Spider-Man, it's kind of like a microcosm of Sony's show in a way. For me personally, is that I talked about God of War not being on my list, and it's not because I wasn't excited for that game. It's just that nothing in that presentation elevated my anticipation for that game, and I think Spider-Man's the same thing. Like, I want to play that game, I want to get my hands on it, but they didn't do anything that was like a wow moment. And I think that was a big thing with Sony's conference of, they didn't have too many crazy valleys, but they didn't really even have any peaks. It was kind of just like a through line, you know? Yeah. And I think that's why people aren't super high on Sony's conference. Not that it was bad. I mean, you can make an argument for it not being great, but like, there wasn't those peak moments that we're used to with Sony, where we got that last year with the reveal of God of War and the reveal of Spider-Man. I don't think there was that many peaks. And yeah, the Spider-Man, I think, or God of War would have been higher on our list, or at least Spider-Man, because I don't know if God of War is higher on your list, if we had those peak moments of, oh, I didn't see this coming, you know. So, sorry, Don.
Well, I think that's pretty much the general consensus across the internet for this E3 as a whole. I just don't think it was enough of a wow factor. You know, we kind of pined for E3 all year long, and then for it to really kind of just be an amalgamation of the trailers that we would have seen throughout the year anyways, or the gameplay footage we would have seen throughout the year. I think that's a little bit saddening, just because we're so used to E3 being such a bang. And I don't know why it was that way this year, but it just didn't seem like anybody was firing on all cylinders, which at least, usually there's at least, you know, one or two companies that has that type of press conference. So
yeah. Dom, I didn't want to cut you off. Sorry.
No, we'll move on. So, surprise, surprise, my number 3 is Days Gone.
Okay, cool. I thought you were going to say Spider-Man. I was like, oh.
Thought I'd lead you guys on for a second. No. So, Days Gone was kind of the opposite of what you guys are talking about. So, compared to what they showed last year, the Days Gone gameplay they showed this year did elevate my anticipation.
Yeah, I would agree with you with that
for this game.
Yep.
Yeah. To a whole new level. Last year I was like, yeah, that could be cool, but I don't know. It's kind of samey and generic feeling. This year it was kind of, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. This looks fantastic. My favorite piece about it is the way they treat, you know, the horde of zombies as something you can kind of manipulate and use as a weapon. Very akin to what we've been seeing, especially lately in The Walking Dead. If you've been keeping up on the show, they kind of, they've always from the start, you know, like, crash into the prison with a truck full of zombies and let them loose. But in the later seasons, they kind of try to manipulate these enormous hordes of zombies in canyons and do even grander scale things with them. And that's the kind of vibes I was feeling from the Days Gone demo too.
It's a good connection there.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is really cool. It's, you know, something that you don't really see a whole lot of. I mean, that's why The Walking Dead, that was one of the few good parts of the last 2 seasons of the TV show. But yeah, that was the one thing that stuck out to me most. I still got to be sold on, you know, the story and the character or characters.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't really know what's going on there, and apparently he's not supposed to not be likable, but that remains to be seen. So, but everything else I thought looked fantastic. So I'm really pumped for this one.
I think you were right that it did elevate what it did last year, because I think some of the demo stuff they showed at the beginning of the Sony conference and at the end when there was that weird demo, I think it did uplift that. My only concern with it is, like, I think that I'm worried about the narrative and everything in it, because everything that we've heard about the character, and honestly, like I like Walking Dead. Daryl Dixon is one of my favorite characters on the show. If you asked me who I wanted to have a video game based around them, he would be my last answer. I just don't think he's a very interesting character on his own, personally. Like, even in the show, and I'm making, obviously, assumptions. We don't know what this character is exactly like, but it's a dude fighting zombies on a bike. I can make a direct correlation there.
Sure.
But, like, you know, the best parts about Daryl is when Beth was alive, spoilers, and the relationship they had. And that's what kind of gives me promise, because if they do introduce that relationship of this guy being this stoic asshole that, you know, no one likes and you're not actually going to like when you start the game, and he's dealing with some bullshit, and then you learn to like him based on his interactions with other people or a love interest or something like that. If that's done right, I think that'll be really cool. I do agree with you that the way they handle the horde stuff is cool. Some of the AI stuff was awkward, like when he's behind the tent and he sets up the bear trap and the one guy goes and steps on it, that's cool. But for the whole camp to like run over there and surround him was kind of an odd choice for AI, I think. For like 14 people to go stay within 1 meter of the guy, odd. But were you gonna say something, Dom? You.
Yeah, the story stuff, I mean, it's a complete closed book, right? It remains to be seen. It could be great.
Yeah.
There's so much we don't know about it yet, so we'll see.
Number 2, if I was a betting man, I would say that this is probably the game that I have on my list that you two don't. But I think Jordan might. Anthem. Anthem's my number 2 game.
Nope.
Yeah, I figured neither of you would have it. So for me, Anthem is everything I was promised with Destiny, and that's why I'm excited. I think Anthem looks really cool. They showed off some really cool gameplay. It looks like there's going to be a lot of depth in the game. Obviously, we don't know a whole lot because the gameplay demo wasn't super long or anything. But the things that get me excited is that your classes are going to be suit-based, meaning that depending on what suit you wear, you can have a different gameplay experience. One of the biggest issues, and I talked about this last week, I think, about with Destiny, is that it's class-based in the sense that it's your character, which means that in order to try out a new class, you have to create a new character, which kind of is... that doesn't play well with a lot of people because that's a lot of grinding you have to do, right? And some people love that grinding, but some people don't. So I think your classes being based on your suits and not necessarily the character itself, I think is really cool. The fact that this is BioWare's A-Team is really exciting to me. The fact that, and I might be butchering his name, Drew Karpyshyn, is that how you pronounce his last name, Jordan? Karpyshyn. He's been working in BioWare Austin on the MMO, the Star Wars MMO. He wrote Mass Effect 1, he wrote KOTOR. He did a lot of, you said the Star Wars books, right, Jordan? Because I wasn't super familiar with his work outside of Mass Effect 1 and KOTOR.
He is the writer of the Darth Bane trilogy, which is a lot of people's, at the top of a lot of people's list of the old EU canon. And then he is also, he wrote the first 3 Mass Effect books that tie into the game storylines in a really cool way.
So this guy, he wrote Mass Effect 1 and 2. He didn't write 3, but like this guy knows what he's doing. So right there, that gets me excited because one of my major complaints with Destiny is there was no narrative, right? No story whatsoever. And this gets me excited because I think, obviously, EA wants to get in on that Destiny money, but I do think they're smart enough to see that in order to have people have a positive light on it, there needs to be more to the game. And BioWare, the A-Team, so as far as RPG mechanics, I think they will blow Destiny out of the water. Gunplay, I think, will be comparable, maybe slightly not as good as Destiny. Mass Effect isn't really known for its overwhelmingly great gunplay, right? But I still think it'll be solid. But their narrative, I think, is where they can definitely separate themselves from Destiny. Because even with Destiny 2, yeah, they're adding story elements, but it still is MMO-y, the way they present it. And I'm very confident in the way BioWare can present stories. And this is a game that I was excited to see on Xbox's stage. I didn't like the way EA handled it. I think this would have played a lot better if we just saw it at Microsoft stage for the first time. I understand why EA was like, we're coming out with Anthem. Remember, it's EA's game. You'll see it at Microsoft stage, But I still think it would have been cool to have that clean reveal at Microsoft. Super excited about it. I know it might not be too high on your guys' list because it is so multiplayer intensive and that's not really your guys' interest. But I do know that you guys, if they double down and say you can play this single player and it looks like a fantastic game, you guys are probably interested in it as well. So that's cool.
So that was the main reason why it wasn't on my list. Well, I didn't think they showed very much at all, but also just the fact that it's really EA cashing in on the whole Destiny craze, the Division type craze, and which may not necessarily be totally a bad thing, but to see the way that BioWare in general, all three studios, has been handled, clearly with Andromeda, and then just kind of printing money with Star Wars: The Old Republic. This is not the direction that I want to see that studio go in, just because I think that they have a really special pedigree with the single player RPGs. So I don't know enough about the game to know whether you could play it single player or not, but if it weren't for Drew Karpyshyn being the writer, I might not even really be, super hype on this game at all, unfortunately.
Yeah, and like for me with Anthem, for my personal interest, I don't think they didn't show a whole lot of the game, but they showed enough to get me interested at the very least. And the thing that has me excited about this is because it's weird that Destiny 2 is coming out so close to the first Destiny, in the sense of, like, you can obviously tell it's a sequel, but it's a more traditional sequel of, like, it doesn't look so much better, but they are adding stuff, With this game has been in development for like 5 years. So I 100% agree with you. We know this. It's EA cashing in on Destiny's success. But I do think it's a lot different than a quote-unquote quick cash. And this isn't Activision giving their license to some small studio to make a Spider-Man game for the movie, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I do think normally you don't really even hear about the writers of games. But I do think they were like, no, we have a good writer on this game, because they've heard about the complaints of Destiny. I think that was a way of them getting you interested. Somebody who, there wasn't enough gameplay for me. I'm worried about what EA is doing with BioWare. I'm worried about a bunch of things, this being multiplayer only, and for them to come out with that writer, that at least got you interested. So I think it was a smart move on their part.
Sure. And I agree with you. I think that's exactly what they were trying to do, is like, hey, wait. We got a writer over here.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to spend too much time on Anthem. Who wants to go next to their number 2? Jordan?
Sure. It is God of War.
Nice.
And I actually agree with a lot of what you said about God of War, Jared, that it wasn't, anything that you really didn't expect. But the biggest reason that it's up this high on my list is actually because, I think they did a lot to distance this game. Obviously, they're trying to distance this game from the original God of War series in many different ways. But specifically in this trailer, I think they did a lot to distance it in all the right ways. I think the fact specifically that you're not about to fight the world serpent when he comes up out of the water, I think that is really interesting to turn that on its head, because you are used to fighting these gigantic monstrosities throughout this game, or throughout that game series, I should say, the original one. So the fact that he seems to be more of an ally when he pops up is really cool. And just some of the different ways that they played on expectations, with Kratos tossing his axe that is supposed to come back to him and it doesn't come back, or not necessarily that the comedy moment with the dwarf was that funny, but it is just showing that they're at least introducing levity to the series. And so just really the fact that they were breaking down a lot of the series conventions and showing the new directions that they're going in was very important to me, and so that's why it's this high on my list. And furthermore, it just looks like a really stellar game. I mean, unfortunately, it is suffering from the Sony first party aesthetic that is looking to be a little too... It seems like, the other Sony first party studios are really just looking at what Naughty Dog's been doing over the years and really trying to fit that aesthetic into whatever their game may be, whether it's Horizon or God of War or Days Gone. So that's unfortunate, but I definitely think this game is going to differentiate itself from the rest of Sony's first party stable. So I'm very excited about this game. I think it's going to be really good. If nothing else, just seeing the way that they're acting out these cutscenes and the emotion that it brings, even in the tiny little bits that we got, I'm really excited just for the story of this game.
One of my favorite parts of the God of War thing that I don't think you mentioned, but you probably like too is when they show Kratos staring at the vase with him on it.
Right. Yeah.
I think that was really cool too.
Very cool. Also, just it still did have the badass God of War moments, like when he's jumping up on top of that troll who has the giant pillar in his hand, and he sticks his axe into the pillar and then yanks the pillar down on top of the guy's head. And it's like they're not doing the thing where they're just trying to go for gore as hard as they can. They're really just going for the fact that, like, yeah, Kratos is still a bad motherfucker that you don't want to mess with. So I like that part isn't missing.
Yeah. Dom, what's your number 2?
All right, number 2. This might be a surprise to you guys. I have Super Mario Odyssey.
Okay.
Number
I think we
2.
might. Yeah, exactly. What could that mean? Anyway, I think we might hear this again before our conversation is done here, but we'll see. So this game, I don't think the trailer necessarily blew me away by any means as a trailer.
What? That was
cool.
One of the best trailers I've ever seen, period.
Yeah, no, it was a cool trailer, but I was, this is good. This is exactly what I want. It did, going back to your guys' point earlier, it didn't, like, bring me to a whole new level of hype or anticipation because I'm already there with this game.
Okay, yeah, you're already
more.
Running full power.
Yeah, no, it was a good trailer. It was a great trailer. Especially that song that was playing. It stuck in my head. I can't think of the words.
Oh,
but
man.
You know
One
what I'm
Up
talking
Girl.
about.
That's my fucking jam.
So, like I said last week, this is the game. This is the sequel to Super Mario 64 that I've been waiting for, and it's finally here. You can get on their case about why did it take so long and what were they doing. But then I guess the easy response would be like the Galaxy games are awesome, but I don't know anything about that. So this is the Mario game that I've been wanting for years. So I'm super pumped for this. I watched a little bit of gameplay demos afterwards, only that desert level, only 10 minutes or so, and then I told myself, you know what, that's it. I don't want to see any more.
Yeah,
I don't
cut
want to
yourself
spoil
off.
these worlds. I don't want to see like how to get the moons, right?
I don't want to see. I was tired of seeing all those damn costumes. Like, get that shit out of there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's totally culturally appropriating the culture. No, I'm just kidding.
No, not that. I'm just saying I'm excited to be surprised by them.
But yeah, no, it all looks good. It looks exactly what I want. Lots of cool little, not gimmicks, but little, where you jump on the wall and you go 2D for a part of the 3D level, stuff like that. They're adding cool new stuff like that. Thank God you don't have to restart the level when you get a moon like you did in 64. That would be very archaic if they kept that around. But
no, you don't. That they've already shown that in gameplay that once you collect a moon, you can continue playing. Yeah. Also, the weird thing that we didn't talk about is like the fact that there's like a date underneath, which is weird. Like when you collect a moon, there's a date attached to it, so people are speculating with like a
timestamp.
Yeah, there's going to be something involved with that, or of leaderboards, or like some quote unquote achievement based system or something like that. Did you have anything else to say, Dom?
I thought I had one more thing. The release date. I think joyfully caught us a little bit off guard. Me, like Jared, I know you and I were both afraid that this was going to slip and get delayed. Yeah. So it was nice to have them confirm like a solid exact date, and earlier than we probably would have thought too. So that was a good, nice little piece that I'm glad they threw in there.
Yeah, I was expecting like late November, honestly, and I was like, oh wow,
right.
The date that everybody chose. I think the biggest, you touched on a lot of stuff. Obviously, we're at the number 1. Odyssey is my number 1. I think the only thing I want to add is that this game is the reason I'm going to be buying a Switch this year. I had talked about before we even really knew about this game that I was on the fence of even getting a Switch this year. Not that I don't want one, but I'm okay with not buying something at launch or near launch, waiting for there to be more things I want. And not that Breath of the Wild is a bad game, or not that I'm not interested in it, but it's not a system seller for me personally. And with
besides Zelda, I don't think you're missing too much. And besides Mario and Zelda, you wouldn't be missing too much this year, I'd say.
Exactly, yeah. And with Super Mario Odyssey, it's like it's going to make me buy a Switch, which that's what Nintendo wants, and that's great. And I do think one thing that I want to talk about is during the Treehouse demo in New Donk City, there's a part where you could actually find Captain Toad from Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker on one of the support beams, which is cool because I don't know if that's a nod to you being able to use an amiibo on the game, which is probably a case. B, them hinting at the next port from Wii U is going to be Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker, which I would personally be super stoked for. I really want to play that game. Or what exactly that is, or we're just going to see cameos from other characters, which I think showing off Captain Toad in the Treehouse event is smart for Odyssey, because that game's so good you don't need to have those. With Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, I think even though that game did demo very well for us and it got us more excited than we thought we would ever be, I think they still were personally worried, and that's like, we need to have this Donkey Kong moment at the end of it, you know, just for the people that are on the edge of whether they're even interested or not. Having like a cameo is cool, and I think that with Super Mario Odyssey, I'm glad that they didn't show too much of that, because, you know, New Donk City, there being Pauline, it's like Donkey Kong City. Will there be Donkey Kong? Will you see him? Will there be Diddy Kong? Like, we don't know, and that's cool, right? And I do agree with you, Dom, of like, I watched this stuff during the spotlight, and then I was looking at the treehouse a little bit, and I was like, actually, no, I'm good. You know, I was like, no, I'm good. I'm just gonna close this, because you want to sit there and watch, and like, oh, I can't wait to play this, but you're also like, eh. And like you said, this is the sequel to 64 I've wanted. The Galaxy games and Sunshine were fine games. They're not bad games, obviously, but they weren't what I wanted next for 3D Mario. Yeah, so I'm excited. Jordan, you can go hit us with your number one.
Yeah, so my number one is also Odyssey, and I think the biggest reason that it's at the top of my list is because it actually does what Zelda didn't do for me, and I'm not saying that the reason it's at the top of my list is in spite of Zelda. I think the reason that it's at the top of my list is because it's doing a lot of things that really do feel new and fresh and almost unbelievable, like super surprising when you see him jump into 2D mode on the wall, right?
That was super cool. Yeah. Oh,
right.
man.
And that's basically what people were saying about Zelda last year, and I felt like that wasn't necessarily deserved, because I don't think it did anything that was just blowing the doors wide open for the future. But really,
Jordan, you made a good
happy
point.
to see.
Sorry to interrupt you, but you made a good point of like the 2D thing. Man, it would be cool to see A Link Between Worlds, which is where Mario got this idea from, in that 3D space. Like, that would have been a cool mechanic that would have been part of Breath of the Wild, and that would have added a whole new dimension. But, like, it's just so cool to see that implemented in Odyssey. It's such a cool reveal, yeah.
Yeah, so just the direction they're headed in, and also the fact that, like I said, I think that trailer specifically was one of the best trailers I've seen in a long time. The music, it's like Persona 5 level awesomeness. Coming out of Japan with their fervent love of jazz, which I'm kind of obsessed with. So to see that, I was very excited just for the soundtrack. And then, yeah, just the way that they presented not Mario possessing other characters, but capturing them, as Nintendo has stated. I'm just really excited to see the direction, or to see that this is the direction that they're going with that series.
Yeah. Dom, it's your number one. I'm assuming it's the Darwin Project.
Yes.
No, it's that random ass thing that Elijah Wood revealed. That's like
Transcendence.
A game within a game or whatever.
Transference, not Transcendence. Transference. Go ahead.
I actually
Dom.
like this. Do you guys actually like? What would you guess? My number one. There's some good.
It's
options,
not God of War. Is Spider-Man already on your list?
Nope.
So
it could be Spider-Man. It could be Spider-Man. I don't think it'd be
anything. It's Spidey, isn't it?
Is it Spider-Man?
No, I'm just gonna lay it out. This is fun, making you guys guess, but no, it's Wolfenstein.
Cool. Of course,
cool pick. Good pick.
You just recently played the first one.
Yeah, so it's exactly. Like super high on his mind. Yeah.
Maybe that's a product of me having just played the first one and loved it so much, but either way, I thought that trailer was absolutely fantastic. It was everything I wanted out of this game and more. And I didn't really know necessarily what I wanted out of it coming in. We knew it was coming, most likely, but I hadn't thought about it too much, whereas Odyssey, I kind of, I knew exactly what it was going to be for the most part, save for, the cool hat mechanic. But with Wolfenstein,
possessing
I didn't have as much. Yeah, that is something, though. But with Wolfenstein, I didn't have as much, thought about it beforehand. So seeing that trailer, I was like, oh, wow, okay, that's right.
Just the cast of characters that they introduced, if nothing else.
Yeah, man, so cool.
We talked about it a lot last week, and how cool that trailer was, and the gameplay looks fantastic. It's a huge visual upgrade, which I can definitely appreciate from the first one. Yeah, everything about it just got me super anticipated for this game, which October 27th, it's the day. Probably the first day ever that I buy 2 full-price games on release, actually.
Oh, wow.
Never thought about that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's probably going to happen. So, definitely looking forward to Wolfenstein. And like Mario Odyssey, also was pleasantly surprised to hear the release date. I think I had predicted it would end up being a spring 2018 game.
Yeah, we assumed it was going to take the Doom praise slot for Bethesda, and they were like, no, it's coming out this year, which is super cool.
We definitely didn't expect both Wolfenstein and The Evil Within to come out this year.
This fall, yeah.
Right. Which
so, Dom,
crazy, but yeah.
I'm glad to hear you're excited about getting both Assassin's Creed Origins and Wolfenstein 2 on October 27th. Which do you think you'll be playing more of?
That's funny.
I think I'll be playing Super Mario Odyssey more, actually.
Okay. I thought you were going to wait a while for that one.
The interesting thing is that, we had to limit it to 5 games, and, I agree with Jordan that this wasn't, a crazy great year for E3, but I do think it wasn't one of the low years either. I think it was pretty steady across the board,
Pretty solid, yeah.
Yeah, and I think now, we don't really need to talk. It's evident. Our game of the show is Super Mario Odyssey, if you add up all the numbers. Wolfenstein 2, good pick. That was actually one of the ones that was on my initial list, and I kind of scratched it off, not because I'm not excited for Wolfenstein 2, but...
So the interesting points here, Wolfenstein didn't make either of your guys' list, and Spider-Man did not make mine at all either. So
exactly, yeah.
Well,
I think, let's see, Odyssey made all 3 of our lists, and Exodus made all 3 of our lists. I think those are the only 2 that made all 3 of our lists, which is interesting. Which I'm excited for Metro Exodus being on both your guys' lists. That really excites me.
Oh man, yeah.
Okay, so we have enough time for a couple of bonus topics. The first one is going to be the biggest reveal. So this is like a game that we didn't know existed, or at least a game we hadn't seen before E3. So Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. We had the leaks, but it wasn't a known quantity as far as it actually existing until E3, right? So that counts. So this one is kind of towing the line. This could not really count. But I'm going to go with Beyond Good and Evil 2. And the reason I say that is I normally I would have probably went with Anthem or something, but just for, to talk about something different. Beyond Good and Evil 2, not necessarily this game, but a follow-up to Beyond Good and Evil has been in development for way too long. Ansel has come out and said before E3 that we weren't going to see it at all. I love the trailer. People can have their gripes about it being cinematic and all this stuff, and we might not see this game for a while. That's fine. For me, I think about it in the moment of me watching the Ubisoft press conference, that trailer coming up, and enjoying it. I think it was the one time throughout all of E3 that I was grinning ear to ear. I loved that trailer so much. And yeah, it didn't show off a lot of the gameplay mechanics and yada yada yada, but I just thought it was super enjoyable. I really loved it. For me personally, it's cool to know Metroid Prime 4 exists, but a logo does absolutely nothing for me. Literally nothing for me. It's cool. It's being worked on. I think a cinematic trailer, you want to have gameplay, right, above all else, but I think a cinematic trailer is better to me than a logo, and I just wanted to clarify because I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, Metroid Prime 4, but...
The frustrating part about that, obviously it's a big reveal that it's Metroid Prime game and not just a Metroid game, but the fact is that when everyone was complaining about Federation Force, Reggie Fils-Aimé came out and said, hey, we're going to be talking about, a real deal Metroid next year, and so for them to come out and just say, yeah, it's Prime 4, that is a little bit... I know for Metroid Prime and Metroid fans in general, it's very exciting to finally have that back and also to have the 2D Metroid coming as well. But just the fact that, we already knew this was going to happen eventually, especially sometime this year, and then basically the only thing we didn't know was that it was a Prime game, so I'm with you there, Jared.
Yeah, and the other thing I wanted to add is clarification Ansel has made, and obviously this game is early in development, so a lot of things can change, but as far as the initial vision of the game, a lot of people thought that you're going to be playing as Nox, which is the monkey character in the game, and then the girl who has jade kind of eyes. This is a prequel to Beyond Good and Evil, if you didn't know. He actually stated, though, in an interview afterwards, is that you're going to create your character at the beginning of the game, which that gets me excited because, this whole thing is about animal-human hybrids being slaves in this world, and right. I think you'll have the option of picking a normal human, but man, getting the option to choose what kind of animal-human hybrid I get to be, that's so cool. Yeah. That's so cool to me because I would love to be a rhino, or I would love to be like a killer
fucking
whale.
lion.
Yeah, just like there's so many really cool options, and the early gameplay demo stuff that they showed off screen in like other interviews is really early, but a lot of the tech they have in place is super impressive. And that's why it was my favorite announcement is obviously this game isn't coming out for a while, yada yada. You can make all your gripes, but that cinematic trailer I absolutely loved, and that's all I want to say.
So, retreading water. My favorite announcement is Metro. It made my top 5.
Yeah.
This was a new game announcement that we had no idea. There were no leaks, I think. No one was even really, at least no one I know, is expecting, this to come out soon. It wasn't like it's about that time that we get a new Metro game. Like, there was nothing like that.
We knew 4A was developing one, but no one ever, I didn't even think that it would come anytime soon. Like, not a chance.
Sure,
yeah.
right. Yeah, so I already talked about it at length, but it looks phenomenal. So that's the easy favorite announcement for me. Coming close, Shadow of the Colossus, not my thing. Never played the original, but it is cool that it's getting remade from the ground up. So it might be something I get into, but still, I think Metro is a better new announcement.
My one problem with that Shadow of the Colossus thing has nothing to do with the game and it being a remake, whatever. I think they really blue balls a lot of people when the imagery they showed beforehand, and then they're like Studio Japan, like Blue Point, and you're like, what? And then it's like, Shadow of the Colossus.
It looks very similar to like the Hunter's Dream in the background, and then you see Studio Japan come up. You're like, oh, so this is Bloodborne 2 made by Studio Japan without From Software. That's where we're going,
I had forgotten all about it, so you know what? Fuck that game. Let's cut that part out that I even mentioned it.
Yeah, I think the blue ball stuff, and the weird thing too is I think we talked about this last week, so I don't want to go on it too much. We can get to Jordan's announcement, but I really think that Sony was banking on that being their wow moment of like, oh, something new we hadn't seen coming, right? And I don't think it really hit that for people. I think a lot of people are excited that that's coming out, but it didn't have that wow factor of that one announcement we're used to, at the very least, that one announcement we're used to seeing from Sony conferences. And I really do think they were banking on that being their, oh my god, it's happening. But people were like, oh, that's really cool, I just don't think it hit what Sony expected.
I think people would have been more excited about it if they had more time to breathe since the tumultuous development cycle of The Last Guardian. Regardless of the fact that this isn't being made by Team Ico, it still is fresh on a lot of gamers' minds, so I'm just not sure what Sony was thinking.
To me, I think this is a way for them to recoup costs in The Last Guardian of like, Bluepoint already did the HD version of Shadow of the Colossus for PS3, right? Am I correct about that? Yeah, so I think it's like them like, okay, let's remake this from the ground up. It won't take too much resources. If people really like Shadow of the Colossus, they'll hear Last Guardian is the sequel to that, which is really the third game because we don't know about Ico coming out, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's them of like trying to sell more copies of Last Guardian in an offhand way, not directly, but like, it's an interesting way to go about it.
Just a little side note, I'm starting to wonder about all these remakes, like, now that they're remaking this game for PS4 and then you also have Last Guardian on PS4, well then is there a need for them to remake Ico so that the whole trilogy is on PS4? I'm not saying that that's required, but it just kind of feels like there's going to be people asking for that now,
If I was them, if I were to remake Ico, at that point, I would just release it, not even standalone. I would release it as a triple pack with Shadow Remaster and Last Guardian. I think that'd be the best way to do it, because it'd be weird to like release one like Shadow of the Colossus and then Ico individual, because I think Shadow of the Colossus, just from a trailer perspective, sells itself way more than Ico or Last Guardian, just because it's a small person fighting a bunch of large enemies. That's just like exciting to gamers.
It's just going to be weird when people are like, well, I played the first game, now I got to go for the second game before I play Last Guardian, and you got to go all the way back to your PS3 or PS2. I don't know. I guess you see what I'm getting at. It's weird.
What was your biggest announcement, though, or your favorite announcement, Jordan?
So mine was also Beyond Good and Evil. I think it was a little bit upsetting to me that they weren't further along in development to be able to show some true gameplay.
Yeah.
But it was such a great CG trailer, and it is a game that, has been needing to happen. It's one of these, like, Last Guardian / Final Fantasy VII Remake that a lot of people have been hungry for a long time. So I think that it's very exciting that it is. They've been saying, no, we are back to working on it, but still it is exciting to see that it's a real thing and it is coming, and they've got a lot of the outline together about what the world is and what the story is, and yeah, there's just a lot of character in that trailer, man. There's a lot of new and fresh stuff that feel like we don't see a lot in video games. So, very excited to see more of that game.
Shout out to Black Women with Afros. We had one in Wolfenstein 2, and we had one in Beyond Good and Evil 2. That's awesome.
All about that shit, man.
I think another interesting thing. So, I don't know if you guys feel the same way. You might be different, but for me, with the reveal trailer, the number one thing it has to do is sell me on the world. Whether it's cinematic, whether it's gameplay, whether it's a mixture of both, it has to sell me on the world, and Beyond Good and Evil 2 cinematic trailer did that. Like, I am super sold on that world, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's all, like, people talk about escalation and stuff like that, but I think the greatest thing it did in regards to it expressing the vision for the game is that Ansel has talked about, he wants it to be about the small, tiny, intimate moments, as well as the things that happen on a grander scale, and you saw that from them going all the way inside a tiny little shop where he's having a specific interaction with one person to them flying out into the universe at the end of it, right? And I think that was really cool. That was communicated really well. So, yeah, I think we're closing up now. Those are all our favorite announcements. We talked about our game of the show, Super Mario Odyssey. It was funny that we had a lot of things end up on the same spot on our list, and that we had some different things, like for Wolfenstein 2 to be on Dom's list and not be on either of ours, you know, which is really crazy. I think the biggest surprise as far as our lists go is, like I said earlier, Metro Exodus being on all three of our lists. That's not that it speaks to the quality of the game. It's just that I didn't know if it did enough to move the needle for you guys, right?
Dude, it looks awesome.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. Next week we're going to get back to our normal show where we talk about the news and then we get into topics. This was our E3 wrap-up. Before we head out, guys, do you have anything to say about E3? You want any final statements for this year? I guess I'll go while you guys think if you want. For me, we've talked about it multiple times. I think it wasn't a fantastic year for E3, but I don't think it was a down year. There wasn't as many peaks, there wasn't as many valleys, but I do think it was a very solid year. This was for me personally, this was one of the hardest years to pick a quote-unquote loser, like the absolute worst conference. I think even like, you know, EA or Sony, to me personally, that were kind of like the lower ones for me, weren't even bad. I think they were still good conferences. So yeah, I think E3 was solid this year, but it wasn't a wow year. I agree with you on that, Jordan.
I think the biggest disappointment is more about the stuff that we didn't see as opposed to the stuff we did. The lack of Sucker Punch game, the lack of Bloodborne 2, and there's plenty of other things. You know, the lack of Amy Hennig Star Wars games.
Not a single Halo game, which is kind of a big deal too. I mean, not having a Halo game is weird.
But specifically the kind of excuses that went into, oh, it's Battlefront's year, so we're not going to show Amy Hennig's game. Oh, we as Sony are basically just banking these announcements for PSX later this year, so that's probably when we're going to see Sucker Punch or Bloodborne 2. And I don't know, I just don't like that approach to it. I think that, you know, I think like Shadow of the Colossus would be a great PSX reveal, whereas I think Sucker Punch deserves the spotlight at E3. So
swap those.
It is upsetting. That's my biggest takeaway, is more what we missed as opposed to what we got.
Good perspective.
So I think Nintendo is now officially back in the conversation.
They are.
That how you will.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that. Mm-hmm.
I agree.
They had the Switch, they had Breath of the Wild, but I think this E3 was really where they, you know, got up that morning, looked at everyone and said, "Hey guys, we're here."
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
if it's not fun, why is it a game?
If it's not a game, why is it a battle? If it's not a battle, what am I doing?
If you're not tripping right now, why are you watching Reggie Fils-Aimé?
Exactly. Also, one quick note: whoever works at Sony PR, if you can please put duct tape over Jim Ryan's mouth, because that guy is not doing anyone any favors. Yeah.
Indies don't matter.
And half of this crap he says, like, it's not even about how he. It's not even about. It's like a mixture of how he said it and why is he saying it at all anyways. It's like, just stop talking,
it's like,
dude.
They're not even asking you about that specifically, and you're just like, let me shit on indies real quick.
Yeah, Sean Layden's sitting there, and Jim Ryan's like, hold my beer, and he walks out on stage. Yeah, so next week we'll get back to our regular show, guys. Thank you guys for listening to our E3 wrap-up. I think we had a good conversation about all our favorite games that we saw. And yeah, I think... Oh, by the way, it was a tie between everybody but me for the predictions. I forgot to talk about that. Don't need to get into it. I did horribly. And looking back on it, some of the choices I made for other predictions, I just thought that there were too easy of predictions, and next year I'm gonna just bank those because I don't want to have to be the only person without 0 points.
All that shit I took about Marvel having a exclusive Xbox game, huh, boys? Or the name of the new Xbox Scorpio, huh? Yeah.
Oh man.
That's pretty much it. Thank you guys for listening and or watching. Please leave us a rating or review on iTunes. It definitely helps. Updated the iTunes cover. Looks pretty good now. It looked fine before, but just upgrade. Let me upgrade. That's pretty much it. Please subscribe to us on YouTube, even if you don't watch the YouTube videos. We're like a couple of subscribers away from custom URL. So close. And yeah, that's it. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.